In this video, I'm sharing 6 strange but true 4th of July facts. I'm talking about everything from a European country that has a huge 4-day party to celebrate America's independence every year, to a deadly illness that used to kill thousands every single 4th of July. But first, my name is Snider. I write books, I give talks, and I do a lot of research. I love digging up weird stuff and sharing it with you. So let's hit the road. Number 1. July 4th was nearly celebrated on a different day. America's Independence Day is so intertwined with its date that many people simply call the holiday the 4th of July. If you're American, you probably learned in school that the Declaration of Independence was signed July 4th, 1776. But that's only partly true. It took a while to gather signatures, and some of the signers waited until as late as August 2nd, 1776 to add their names. At the time, many felt that July 2nd was a much more appropriate celebration date. This is because that was the day that the American colonies formally separated from Great Britain. They have a point, right? President John Adams was in the July 2nd camp. He even predicted that, quote, the second day of July 1776 will be the most memorable epoch in the history of America, unquote. In the end, obviously, July 4th won out, even though it wasn't officially declared a federal holiday until 1870. Number 2. 3 U.S. presidents died on July 4th. In fact, 2 of these presidents even died the same year. Not only were those 2 men presidents, but they were also signers of the Declaration of Independence, and they both died on July 4th, 1826, which was the 50th anniversary of America's independence. I'm talking about John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Although Jefferson actually died earlier on the same day, Adams did not know this, so Adams' final words were, "Jefferson still survives." Who was the 3rd U.S. president to die on July 4th? James Monroe, yet another founding father. Monroe died on July 4th, 1831. Number 3. 1 U.S. president was born on the 4th of July. Talk about a patriotic birthday. Calvin Coolidge was born on July 4th, 1872. And so far, he's the only U.S. president to have been born on Independence Day. Although it is interesting to note that President Obama's daughter, Malia, was also born on July 4th. Number 4. The country of Denmark celebrates America's 4th of July. It's true. Denmark has the biggest July 4th celebration outside of the USA. In the 1800s, thousands of Danes came to the USA to pursue the American dream. Eventually, some of them pooled their funds and they bought land back home. They then donated this 200-acre tract to the Danish government with a stipulation that the land be used to celebrate American holidays. Since 1912, an annual 4th of July festival has taken place in Denmark, and it's still going strong. The event is called Rebuild Fest. It has nothing to do with rebuilding things. It gets its name because there's a nearby town called Rebuild. Each year, thousands of Danes and Danish Americans gather for a 4-day celebration. It's a mishmash of Danish and American traditions. So you've got schnapps and hot dogs and beer and pickled herring, and people are singing Danish folk songs and they're singing American folk songs. It sounds like a really fun celebration of both nations and a great reminder of America's cultural melting pot. The 2020 celebration was canceled due to the coronavirus, of course, but I'd really like to go and see it for myself sometime, wouldn't you? Number 5. Let's talk about the Declaration of Independence. Have you ever wondered how many copies were made and where they're kept? Yeah, me neither. No, I'm kidding. I have actually wondered and looked into this. So, in 1776, there were 200 copies of the original Declaration of Independence printed. Only 26 of these copies remain, and most of them are located on the East Coast of the United States. However, there is one copy of this historic document that is kept west of the Mississippi. The Dallas Public Library, right here in Texas, has a copy, a rare copy, of the Declaration of Independence, and it's on display if you go visit them. They also have a copy of Shakespeare's First Folio. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, I saved the weirdest, strange but true 4th of July fact for last, and it's a real doozy. But before I tell you about it, please take a moment to click the like button, hit subscribe, and remember to turn on those channel notifications because I have lots and lots more goodies to share with you in upcoming videos. Number 6. Patriotic lockjaw was a thing. When you think of the 4th of July holiday, you probably think of parties, fireworks, and parades. But how about lockjaw? In the 1800s, fireworks became a popular way to celebrate the 4th of July. However, there were few safety regulations, so these fireworks were often quite dangerous. Every July, people would have all sorts of mishaps. Everything from burning down their house to blowing off their hands, losing an eye, but worst of all was the possibility of getting tetanus. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, tetanus cases were so common after the 4th of July that people just started calling it patriotic lockjaw. And as this newspaper from 1908 points out, in a 10-year period, more people died celebrating the 4th of July than lost their lives during America's War of Independence. What a terrible irony! What exactly is tetanus? Tetanus happens when a specific bacteria infects a wound. The disease leads to painful muscle constriction, and since it often strikes the head and neck area, it's been nicknamed lockjaw. Unfortunately, children were the most common victims of patriotic lockjaw. Untreated lockjaw leads to an agonizing death. But every year, the newspapers of the early 1900s are full of cases of children who died from patriotic lockjaw. Here's a newspaper article from 1921 that describes what a terrible death lockjaw causes. The suffering caused by lockjaw is the terrible feature of it. The patient is generally conscious even in the most acute spasms. The suffering is caused by contraction and stiffening of the muscles. Doctors say that in some cases the muscles of the back become so arched that only the head and feet of the patient touch the bed. Cases that reach so acute a stage as this seldom recover. Tetanus-causing bacteria dies quickly when exposed to air, so your average cut or scrape's not going to bring you any problems. But the reason fireworks cause so many cases of tetanus is that the explosions push the bacteria deep into the wounds, and the bacteria really thrives when there's no air. In the 1900s, tetanus campaigns helped raise public awareness of the tetanus threat. Eventually, a tetanus antitoxin was invented, and later a tetanus vaccine was developed. Now, there are just as many tetanus-causing microbes around as there ever were, but thanks to what has now become a routine childhood shot, patriotic lockjaw is a thing of the past. By the way, a tetanus booster is recommended every 10 years, and I had one last year. And now, a word from our sponsor. SSS, a fine remedy that clears skin of pimples on the cheeks, temples, sides of nose, and chin. Let SSS purify your blood. Insects can't harm. By the way, did you know that I send actual physical postcards to my Patreon supporters?
Here's one from March where I visited the grave of some sponge divers. They were Greek immigrants, very interesting. And then in April, I sent some April flowers. So check it out.